Welcome back. Antenuptial contracts entered into by monogamous couples already in a customary marriage have been declared invalid by the Constitutional Court. This majority judgment, penned by Justice Stephen Majiedt, was handed down today. He ruled that despite amendments to the Marriage Act allowing for customary marriages to be converted to civil unions, this does not undo matrimonial property agreements entered into prior the customary marriage. According to Majiedt, the recognition of the Customary Marriages Act signed into law 26 years ago was meant to give customary marriages the same importance as civil unions. Newzroom Afrika's Junior Khumalo reports.
In a significant victory for customary marriages, the Apex Court has ruled that agreements entered into on how assets will be handled prior to couples marrying under customary law may not be disregarded should the marriage later be converted into a civil union. The judgment comes after the Pretoria High Court last year found Section 10.2 of the Recognition of Customary Marriages Act to be unconstitutional. This section permits monogamous couples in a customary marriage to convert their union into a civil marriage. Majiedt says such a provision was meant to place customary marriages on the same footing as civil unions.
The majority judgment, which I shall call the first judgment which I've written, with Dambuza A.J., Goosen A.J., Nhlanhla J., Tiki J., and Theron J. concurring, declines to confirm the High Court's order of constitutional invalidity for the reasons advanced below. The first judgment begins by emphasizing the transformative purpose of the Recognition Act. That act was enacted to remedy the historical non-recognition and marginalization of customary marriages and to place them on an equal footing with civil marriages.
This judgment by the Apex Court comes after a spouse approached the Pretoria High Court citing the invalidity of Section 10.2 of the Recognition of Customary Marriages Act. After 8 years of marriage, the couple decided in 2019 to change their customary marriage into a civil union and in the process signed an antenuptial contract. Having concluded the civil marriage in 2021 without dividing the joint assets created by the customary marriage, the husband approached the court seeking a divorce. In response, the wife pleaded that the antenuptial agreement entered into during the transition period from customary to civil marriage be declared invalid, or, in the alternative, the entire provision in the Recognition of the Customary Marriage Act. The High Court last year then found Section 10.2 invalid. On the contrary, the Constitutional Court has argued that transitioning to a civil union does not nullify the customary marriage, meaning that asset agreements entered into prior to the customary marriage remain.
If the customary marriage is out of community of property with an A and C, the civil marriage will not be in community of property. It will be out of community of property in accordance with the A and C, which regulates the parties' marriage. The converse would also, of course, be true.
Majiedt argues that retaining the validity of the entire Recognition of the Customary Marriages Act transforms customary unions from a system that traditionally subordinates women to one that, through legislative intervention, formally empowers them with the rights to property, status, and equality. For Newzroom Afrika on Channel 405, I'm Junior Khumalo at the Constitutional Court.
NLB Attorneys Executive Director Lucia Bugana joins us now to unpack this judgment for us. A very good evening to you, Lucia. Thank you so much for joining us. So maybe just give us a bit of context, because during the apartheid times, customary marriages were not recognized, where couples needed to go and register a civil union in order for their marriages to be recognized. If you can just simplify the significance of the ConCourt's judgment today in overturning the High Court's ruling on the Recognition of Customary Marriages Act.
Okay, thanks, Katlego. Yes, so I mean, today, the judgment that was delivered today is of great importance. And I think the Constitutional Court made the correct ruling, because they looked at the interpretation of the Recognition of Marriages Act, as specifically Section 10, holistically as an entire act. They didn't just look at the one provision and invalidate it. So you need to read Section 10 of the Recognition of Marriages Act and also interpret that in line with the intention of the legislation. The intention of the legislation, as you said, was to recognize customary marriages. Before the apartheid era, they were not recognized as unions or civil unions. So the Recognition of Customary Marriages Act basically just made them on an equal footing with civil unions, gave especially the Black woman, gave them empowerment in terms of status and capacity, in line with the civil unions. So essentially, the Constitutional Court is saying, don't look at the Section 10 of the Recognition of Marriages Act in isolation. Look at it holistically in line with the whole intention of the legislation.
And you speak about the intention and the impact that this has on the Black woman. Maybe just talk to us about the impact on the rights of those spouses, particularly regarding the property division in this regard.
Okay, so the judgment delivered today protects a woman. In fact, it solidifies the fact that women who enter into customary marriages and then is then converted into a civil union or civil marriage, they retain the same rights they had during the customary marriage. So essentially what the Constitutional Court is saying is the customary marriage is not terminated, it is actually just continuing, but you've just converted the marriage system. So I think, to put it plainly, if you are driving to a certain destination using a particular vehicle, the only thing that changes when you use Section 10 of the Recognition of Marriages Act is the vehicle that you're using. The destination doesn't change. So if you've entered into a customary marriage via ANC, then when you convert the marriage in terms of Section 10, those proprietary rights will still apply.
And are there potential legal risks or challenges for spouses who enter into antenuptial contracts after their customary marriage?
Yes, certainly. And I think it's of great importance that the Constitutional Court highlighted that the fact that the Deeds Office should not register these antenuptial contracts that are actually executed and entered into after the customary marriage is in existence. So if you sign an ANC contract after you've entered into the customary marriage, you cannot use Section 10 as a vehicle to change your proprietary rights of the marriage. So the ANC is not valid. ANC contracts must be entered into prior to the marriage.
And when you say prior to the marriage, are you saying before those lobola negotiations take place, before the uncles sit around the table, already you must have that contract in place? Does that also not go against some of our cultural practices, because the negotiation of lobola is setting up of a contract on its own?
Certainly. It is important that you sign and enter into the antenuptial contract before the lobola negotiations and before you've concluded that ceremonial celebration. Unfortunately, that is the law. If you want your marriage to be in line, or specifically in this case, if you want it to be recognized as out of community of property, you will need to take the extra step before the lobola negotiations with your partner and register the antenuptial contract.
And Lucia, just how does this ruling influence the broader legal framework surrounding matrimonial property regimes in our country?
Well, I think the judgment is a step in the right direction, because it basically entrenches the rights that women and basically both spouses have in the beginning of the marriage, and it converts just the marriage system into a civil union, but you maintain those rights. You still can claim, if you're claiming the pension fund, you still can do that. You still create a joint estate.
All right, Lucia, thank you so much for your time and for joining us this evening. That's NLB Attorneys Executive Director Lucia Bugana speaking to us there after that judgment that was made by the ConCourt with regards to the customary marriages property regime.